Well, hello and welcome to another episode of More Perfect Marketing. It's David Baer here. Today we're going to be chatting with Ryan Cote, who is joining me from I was going to say great state of New Jersey. I don't know that I've ever heard of New Jersey as a great
Garden
state,
State.
although it is the Garden State. That is correct. Um, and you're the first person that I think I've spoken with on this program who has a marketing business that's multi-generational. The company started back in the 1960s. I imagine it was not a digital agency or digital focus back then, but your emphasis, I imagine originally, because it's something that the business still does focus on, is direct mail. And at some point, our world turned to a digital focus, and that got added on to your services. So I'm eager to dive into a little bit of how do you balance those different areas online and offline marketing, and who better to guide us through some of those conversations than Ryan Cote. Welcome.
Thank you, David. That was a nice introduction. Appreciate it. Now I got to live up to it.
Well, you promised me that you wouldn't necessarily have a strength in the full picture, because your area of expertise is really focused around SEO and Google My Business and digital stuff. But the business has expanded into that as
Yes.
our world has changed, and you do actively have a number of clients who are in the direct mail space. And so I wonder if you can sort of guide us through a little bit of the history of the company.
Yeah. So the company was started in 1966. My great uncle Tom, no longer with us as of a couple of years ago, but he got to see the business develop until what it is today, which I think was pretty exciting for him. He started in '66. We started out just doing print and ship type work. So yeah, you had an office, you needed brochures printed, he would print it and ship it to you. And then over the years, as just you know client needs have changed and just us trying to grow the business, honestly, we've introduced new services. So, and it's been like a natural evolution. So I say that because it was like print and ship, and then we started printing and mailing. So now it's direct mail.
Mhm.
And then we started offering creative copy and design, mostly through freelancers, but still a service that where we always had something going on. And so that was the direct mail side. And we got into like mailing lists a little bit through partners and just trying to offer the full picture. And then digital came in. And so for a while, I was just the director of marketing, managing the site, trade shows, all of that. And then I had the idea because I was dabbling with online stuff on the side for myself and like mostly SEO. And so I came to my father, my uncle, and I said, I think we can create a whole new digital division offering, these services. And so they said yes. And we started small, just offering SEO because that's what I knew best. And then my brother came on board in 2014, and then he started learning Google Ads, and we started getting bigger clients, and we were able to hire someone, and then it just kept on going from there. And so we've pivoted a few times in terms of like who we service best and what services we're honestly good at. And so we've made some changes, just trying to figure it out because it was all new to us. But fast forward to today, we've got the direct mail team and the digital team, and they're all in house. And now they're remote, but they're all in house, in terms of on salary.
So you said you've pivoted a few times, and obviously, the emphasis on where marketing happens and where, whether you're B2B or B2C, where the consumer is likely to encounter marketing messages, that's changed over time. Human behavior is fundamentally always consistent, but obviously, as we have new media, new channels that we spend time on, you're probably trying to figure out, okay, where do we need to be paying attention? Where is that new client going to walk in the door and say, hey, do you know how to do this or that? Right? The hot thing for 2021 or 2020, maybe it was audio social, like Clubhouse, and then we got
Yes.
TikTok, and suddenly, those of us in the marketing space have to either hurry up and figure out how do we market on these platforms, or we have to be able to understand, is this even appropriate for this the client and their goals. And so I'm curious sort of what experience you have navigating those types of changes over time.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, that could be the whole podcast in itself because I mean, I can even answer on the direct mail side, even though I'm not really on that side, but I'm in it. So you think, okay, we're just printing and mailing. We're like a production company. A client will give us their art files unless we're creating them, and then we print them and mail them. Sounds very simple, but there are a lot of different formats you can use: a postcard, a self mailer, an envelope package, a magalog, et cetera, et cetera. And so, the formats change, and one format like a nonprofit, you usually get money back, so you have to have a BRE in there unless you're pushing people online to donate. Um, so it depends on what industry we're talking about. But then if you look at the printing plants, they have all this new technology coming out, like these presses. If you saw these printing presses, it would like, I don't know if you have ever, but it would
Yeah.
blow your mind to seeing like the size of these things and what they can do. It's like, oh man. And so we've had to navigate like what formats we're going to offer, what formats our vendors are good at, what new technology are we going to push them to invest in so we can offer it to our clients. And so that's been really interesting seeing the changes in the print industry. Even though everyone says direct mail is dead, it's just changing, and the technology continues to advance, even to the point now where, like, just to bridge the gap between digital and print, um, there's technology now where you can put cookies on a script on your site, and it pulls that person's address from that script. Don't ask me how it does it, but it finds the person's address. So if you're browsing on a site, that script pulls your address in, and then it kicks it over to the print house, and the printer mails it and sends it to that person. So if you're looking at a BMW or whatever, 4 days later, you're getting a mail piece about BMW. You're on their site, and you're getting a mail piece.
Yeah.
I'll
So
pause there.
scripts like that, I think are accurate maybe about 20-25% of the time. They're actually able to pull that information.
Yes.
Email addresses as well, same thing as physical addresses. But yeah, I mean, can you imagine the ability of a business to have um, the communication to somebody who's visiting their site, right? We're familiar, those of us in the digital space, with the concept of remarketing through Google or retargeting through Facebook, where you visit a site and then those ads start following you around. Well, you're talking
Yep.
about a physical version of that.
Exactly. That's how we describe it. Yeah. We're starting to do it for a few clients. It's still new for us, but that's how we describe it because most people understand, especially if you're talking to a marketer, traditionally they're more trained in digital than direct mail. And so, they understand the concept of it's like remarketing, but with actual physical printed pieces.
That's cool. I actually have not worked on a campaign like that, so I'm curious to hear how that's playing out with your clients. So, all right, so you have these two different sides of your business, right? And
Yep.
then figuring out all of the issues of what's working now, right? What's appropriate for the client. As we were talking before we hit record, I asked you a little bit about how do you initially engage with the client to figure out what of the many things that you're offering is going to be appropriate to them. And I wonder if you can sort of guide me through that thought process when a client comes into you. What are they asking initially? Are they focused on, we want to accomplish a certain outcome using this specific channel, or are they saying we need help, show us the way, or something in between?
Yeah, so the path that we've decided to go down, because with digital marketing, there's so many different industries you can focus on, e-commerce and different industries. We have decided more manufacturing, industrial, whether that's right or wrong. Like in hindsight, pre-COVID, if we had gone more into e-commerce, that would have really benefited from us. But we were fine through COVID. Our clients still needed leads; they still needed to market online, so we were okay. But we gravitate more towards like the industrial type company, and I think there's a few reasons for that. And I'll answer your question. You know, they typically don't have marketing people, okay, at least the ones that we speak to, but they're still big enough to afford someone like us. They typically have not done digital marketing, or they kind of have, but not really, where someone's in the office and 1 hour a week, he or she will do it. And so they're excited by the opportunity to do it, and they've never worked with someone like us. and they just need more leads. And so what happens is typically we're working with the owner or someone very close to the owner. And so it's a very good relationship where they rely on us and we rely on them, and it's a nice collaboration. And so to answer your question, for them, it's really they're asking about leads. They want to take their website and turn it into a like a salesperson that that gets them leads. And so like going back to what I said before about pivoting, we've had to just be honest with ourselves and say like, what are we good at, and like there's certain things we've sort of backed away from, and like social media is one of those examples. We do social media a little bit,
Mhm.
but it's not a big part of our business. A little bit with LinkedIn, of course, promoting the content, running ads, but like we're not running these full-fledged social media campaigns where we're creating content, taking photographs, and running ads. It's just not a sweet spot service for us. And so, when a client comes in or a prospect comes in, we know they need leads, and so we'll look at like who their audience is, what keywords that audience is using. What will the Google ad campaign look like? What do we have to work with SEO? Because as you know, like you need a good website, you need actual content to work with. Do we need to create content? And so it just depends on what we're working with. Some clients come to us with like no website at all, or a website that is definitely 25 years old. And so it just depends on what we're working with.
When you say industrial and manufacturing, I'm envisioning businesses that are mostly B2B businesses. So
Yes.
they are probably the slowest to adopt technology in their marketing, because historically a lot of them have been salesperson based or relationship based, printing brochures and going and have meetings and talking to people. And so they've not kept up with the technological advances in the marketing world.
100, yeah, 100%. Though I will say that's changing. Like you know, even like the B2B manufacturing industrial, they're getting more sophisticated. Like the reporting that they want from us, the questions that they're asking, that you could tell that they're into it and that they're really focusing on what we're saying and you know, not just like glazing over. And so, but yeah, you're right. Most aren't doing much, or they're doing a very little bit. And so that's exciting for us because it's like a clean slate, and it's fun to run SEO and Google ad campaigns for someone that hasn't done it before, because all of a sudden you're introducing them to a whole new set of potential buyers. They're used to going to trade shows and shaking hands, which is fantastic. But now we're getting in front of them. We're getting in front of them. Maybe they're younger buyers that are searching on Google for their widgets or whatever they're making, and then we're getting in front of them, and that's like a whole new world for them. It's exciting.
I mean, you bring up an interesting point here, because as you were talking about younger buyers, I've just been reading a fascinating book on the subject of category design. And the idea that I've just been reading about is that there are two different audiences that really exist in this world. It's totally appropriate for your business, understanding the audience up to and including my generation, which is Gen X, where we are native to analog communication, right? And as soon as you hit the millennials and the Gen Z, right, they are native to digital. And understanding that by default, the first place that somebody looks or where somebody spends their time is often going to determine the channels where a business might be communicating. And so a younger buyer is not necessarily going to be putting lots of trade shows on their calendars and going to conferences and receiving in-person visits from salespeople, as much as jumping onto a device and trying to figure stuff out for themselves.
That's so true. So I guess I'm Gen X. I'm 43. So does that make me Gen X? I don't even know what the
I don't
1979.
know the cutoff, and somebody's going to be like, listening to us and saying, "Oh, yeah, you don't." Anyway, I don't know the answer, but we're just a few years apart from each other. I am Gen X, and before the end of our conversation, one of us is going to hit Google and figure out where the cutoff is.
I'm almost positive I'm Gen X. I've looked
Mhm.
up, I just can't remember. But yeah, so we have the advantage or the visibility into both ends. So, I would imagine like my daughters, they're 12, 10, and 8, but they're growing up with their phones. And so like I can imagine if I said to them, "Hey, we're gonna if they join the business, hey, we're gonna go to a trade show and
Yeah.
stand on our feet for 9 hours and shake people's hands." They'd be like, "What are you talking about? Why don't we just do this online social thing?" Um, and so it's funny, yeah. They grow up with their phones in their hand. They grow up with this online with TikTok and all that stuff, so they don't know. the whole other side
Yeah,
that exists to all of this.
totally. And as marketers, we need to be able to tap into that. By the way, you are officially Gen X. You just hit the cutoff. It's 1965 to 1980.
Oh boy, I was 79. So there we go.
So I mean, this
Uh,
this is worth understanding as a business is sort of approaching a marketer like you. Is, you know, one of the really big questions is who is the audience and how do they need to be and like to be communicated with? And you were talking about this when you were talking about the direct mail side of the business and all of the different options. Do we use, you know, a postcard? Do we use a magalog? Do we use a catalog? Do we use a self mail? Or what are all the options? And obviously those different things just within the direct mail space are going to speak to somebody differently. And so as
yes.
you're talking about the digital world where there's the same exact set of choices that you have to help a client make on that front as well. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious to understand a little bit of the conversation and the decision making process as you begin working with a client.
Yeah. So I would say like when we're working with a client, like if we're talking about the B2B manufacturers, everything we do, the programs we do for them, it almost always includes SEO and Google Ads because we want to get in front of those keywords organically and paid. They're very yin and yang. SEO takes forever, and you're at the mercy of Google's algorithms. Whereas paid, you got to pay for the clicks, but that traffic starts literally within hours. Um, then so those are the staples, and then the question is trying to understand more about who their audience is. Do they read content online? Is that company doing trade shows? Because what we'll often do is a lot of them are, you know, even like the family-owned manufacturers we work with, where it's like the older dad or mother, and then the young siblings or not siblings, sons and daughters are coming into the business. They're still doing trade shows usually, and so that's a whole other opportunity for us because in many cases they'll give us the trade show list of attendees, and then we can upload that to LinkedIn, run the matches, and then now we're showing they're going to be at the exhibit hall, and then we're going to be running ads or sending out emails to the attendees. And so it's really understanding like what we have to work with, like what their
Mhm.
current marketing looks like, who their audience is, and then together the game plan from there.
So I'm interested to understand how, if ever, online and offline merge. I mean, you gave a really good example of, right, you have a business that then might have some supplementary event-based stuff, and so you have some consideration there about, okay, we're not just driving traffic to your site for engagement, but we're driving people to an event or from an event or you know, utilizing some of the other activities in your business. Is there a similar thought process to, all right, we're starting online because this is, you know, where the bulk of our activity is likely to be with this client, but do we look at offline? Do we look at direct mail or some other, and I know you don't necessarily do or specialize in things like outdoor advertising or print media ads or things like that, but how does that stuff enter into consideration, if ever?
I mean, we do have some clients. We do have some clients on the direct mail side. It never happens because our clients on the direct mail side are gigantic and they have full blown marketing teams that are doing what we do. But on the digital side, it's interesting because it's like a whole new world for them. Like they've never done any of this stuff, and so we do have conversations around direct mail, mostly postcards and self mailers, and we've done a little bit. We've done some campaigns for them, or printing their sell sheets for their salespeople. But I'll be honest, like when we show them pricing, and this is not knocking direct mail because we do a ton of it, but when we show them, it's just what they're used to. Like they're anchored at the digital price,
Yep.
and then we show them the direct mail, and this is what the print and the mail, the postage altogether is going to cost. And they're like, oh, well, I could put that $10,000 into a whole bunch of clicks on ads. And so then the conversation sort of gets kind of, not as interesting for them. But I would say like the biggest example is the one I just shared is the trade show because a lot of our clients are doing trade shows. They're buying the attendee list, and and we're often creating content around the trade show. Okay, that they're going to be exhibiting, what a recap of the show. We'll get the attendee list and do remarketing on social, and then getting the email list and sending out emails to the people
Yep.
as well. And so that's like, for at least for my world, that's like the most applicable way that we're bridging the gap between those two worlds.
Right. And I will hasten to add that, you know, the conversation that you've described there about comparing numbers and investment, there are plenty of direct mail marketers who will be able to rationalize, and
Yes.
rightfully so, right? That there's actually, just as good, if not better, return on investment through direct mail. It's just it's a different animal, and you have to understand the how the numbers work in that area. And because the the financial setup and the numbers are so ingrained in so many marketers, as you said earlier, in the digital world, it's easier and more comfortable for a lot of us to sort of just sit in that space.
Yeah, and there was a part with the one advantage of direct mail is that the inbox is a lot less uh, congested than your
Yeah,
inbox and
yeah.
social feeds, especially like not to bring COVID up, but COVID, like man, there was everyone was going online and the mailboxes were very light. And so
Mhm.
where maybe some like for me at least personally, my mailbox, I usually get, I don't know, 15, 20 pieces of mail every day. During COVID, it was like two or three pieces. So there's like no competition at the 2 year window or 1 year window, you know.
And I would say that it compared to, 1966 when your company started, right? Obviously, there's a lot less attention on the physical mailbox these days by marketers, but there is still the same amount of attention on the physical mailbox by the consumer, by the recipient. It's the one place
Yeah.
where you have a lot more opportunity to capture their attention, even if it's busy. We had a couple of episodes with a guy named David Foley, who's a seasoned direct mail pro, and I think it's back to episode number 82, where he talks about direct mail economics. And for listeners who are interested in learning more, I highly recommend seeking that out. And Ryan and I will continue that conversation offline. But I do want to emphasize that there's a lot of marketing opportunity that's neglected, whether it's an online channel that isn't being explored that ought to be because there's no competition there, or an offline channel like we've just been discussing, which is ripe for opportunity, but is a little bit more involved. And we've gotten used to the ease of uploading an image and selecting our profile of who we want to put that image in front of, and hitting go and just letting the money roll. And there's lots of opportunities that marketers like the folks at Ryan's company can help guide you through.
Yeah, and I'll give you a couple of examples there that your audience might not know about. With direct mail, sometimes our clients will use that as an experience. Like we work with some of the major cruise companies, and there's a reason why they mail. I mean, they do self mailers too, but there's a reason why they mail booklets out because it's an experience. The person's getting it, they can visualize the vacations. It's something they can thumb through, keep. So it becomes an experience. It's a marketing piece, but it's an experience as well. We've even done for a handful of times for these cruise companies, like video mailer. So picture you're getting this like it looks like a self mailer, but it's kind of like a 3D or whatever, and you open it up, and there's like this little iPhone screen, like a tiny one that auto plays and shows you the ship and all of that. And so that's experience on steroids.
Yeah.
Um, and then on the digital side, I'm trying to think of what's because we don't do anything with TikTok or anything like that. But we're seeing two things, just to give some takeaways here. We're seeing it's easier to rank in Google Business than it is with your website. I mean, it's still possible to rank with your website. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying we're seeing it happening quicker on Google Business profiles versus your site. And then with content, we do a lot of content. We're seeing like FAQ style blogs ranking quicker,
Mhm.
ones that like answer questions. You could put FAQ schema on there, which makes it a more of a rich result in the search results page for Google. So there's still like it's interesting. It's like this industry is always changing. New things are at our disposal, and it's just really fun trying to navigate it all.
So I want to talk a little bit more deeply about the two examples that you've just given here, because these are things that I don't think are as intuitive to a business that's thinking about, all right, how do I do my marketing myself, or I want to get found on a search engine so that somebody comes over to my website. But you've just talked about two examples where maybe the answer to somebody's question might appear in search results right there on Google. I'll give you a perfect example of this. I wanted to see, because I knew that your company was based uh in New Jersey. I was going to
Of
say
course.
Morristown. It is
Yep.
Morristown, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And I knew that there was a wine shop in Morristown that I remembered spending a lot of time with and used to sell to, but I couldn't remember what it was. So I typed in, wine shop Morristown. And what
Mhm.
happens, but I see the listing of all of the wine shops come up, and then there's I think a map and a, I don't remember what it was, not that wine shop, but it was a wine shop prominently displayed right there, right? So Google has decided for me that there is a recommendation they want to make of a specific business based on a general search that I just did.
Yeah, that's Google Business. That feeds Google Maps. It's I would say it's low hanging fruit now because it's still it's been around forever, but it's definitely easier to get results in Google My Business, or it used to be called, now it's called Google Business Profiles. I would say my takeaway there, if you want to do this yourself, is get yourself verified in Google Business and then fully fill that sucker out. Like, you would not launch a site without any pictures or content. You just wouldn't do that. It would be like a full-fledged website that you're launching. So don't do that with Google Business. Verify it and then fully fill it out. Your hours, your description, your products, your services, photos, like everything. Take a few hours and fully fill it out, and then get reviews. And that's not everything you need to do, but that's like a head start, and definitely you'll be ahead of most of your competitors if you take the time to do that.
So somebody who's willing to do that work, obviously there's a lot more you said that needs to be done, and
Yep.
that's where experts like you come in to the picture. What are the types of things you mentioned, the schema, the FAQ stuff, and this was probably a lot more involved than any business is willing or able to really figure out how to strategically approach. Are these the types of things that coming to a company like yours, a business is able to then build out some of the other sort of components of being able to compete in a search environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think the FAQ style blogs is definitely a step in the right direction for SEO. There's more to do, like link building and things like that, and the optimization of keywords on your page. But a big head start for the SEO side is creating content around questions that your customers or prospects are asking. So that's oftentimes with like these manufacturers, because a lot of it's technical, like the way they make their widgets or what they produce, and like everything in between, regulations, laws around the products that they sell. And so we always ask, like, what questions are your customers asking,
Mhm.
and what questions is your sales team getting? And if you create content around that, there's a book. I'll make a book recommendation. Book recommendation. They ask, you answer. I'm like 99% sure that's the name of the book. They
Yep.
ask, you answer. That's the whole concept. This guy did it for a pool company. And it was, to be fair, it was like 10 years ago, where it was like a lot less crowded, but still, it's still a concept that works today. And
Yep.
we're seeing Google rank more blogs, more FAQ style blogs, because their job is to answer questions, and that blog is designed to answer questions. And so it's naturally, assuming the content's good, it's a nice marriage.
So the book is written by a guy named Marcus Sheridan, and you're absolutely right. Right, the new millennial buyers who these companies are selling to, right? They're not looking in the yellow pages. They're not looking, in Encyclopedia Britannica for the answer. Does that still exist? They are searching online for the answers to these questions, and so you're talking about how a company can position themselves to be uh, the knowledge base that is answering those questions and addressing the types of things that their prospective buyers are looking for, which is
Yeah,
perfect.
it's really about becoming the authority. That's you need to do that by showcasing your knowledge, and that's content creation around FAQs. That's definitely a good start.
So I want to make sure that before we wrap up, that folks know a little bit more about how they can avail themselves of the expertise at your company, which, by the way, I don't think we've mentioned is called Ballantine. You guys are, I've mentioned twice now, based in New Jersey, but you're serving clients across the U.S. Um,
Yes.
what else do we need to let folks know about you, and where can they go to find out more?
Yeah, I'll mention, so Ballantine is ballantine.com. That's our site. We've got an active blog, and a bunch of videos and just, content around our services. And there's videos about us speaking. If you want to get to know me and my brothers, my uncle, my cousin better, it's a family business. It's more than just family, but so that's that Ballantyne.com. And then, we didn't really talk much about this at all, but like we have my podcast. And so if anyone's interested in like personal development, entrepreneurship, that's like a little side passion project for me called Morning Upgrade. It's morningupgrade.com. I am starting to interweave the two businesses.
Oh, cool.
Uh, and you know, I wasn't anticipating that, but sometimes when you go down a journey, you just never know where it's going to take you. And so what I'm doing is like I have a book, and so I'll mail clients and prospect my book. I've got a podcast around morning routines and entrepreneurship and stuff like that, and so I'll invite my clients on the podcast and prospects. And so it's been an interesting thing because now it's opened up. It's sort of a differentiator for me, but
Yeah.
now it's opened up gateways to these different conversations with prospects and clients that I would never have had before, and so it's opened up a whole new way just to engage with them, which has been really fun.
I just want to take a quick moment to first of all say that's very, very smart, and because it allows you to do two things, and you explain both of these, but I want to reiterate them for listeners. The first one is the differentiation, right? If a prospective business owner is thinking about, all right, which digital agency am I going to hire to do work for me, and Ryan is sending them his book, and they see first of all that he's thoughtful enough to have thought about these things and then articulated it in a book format. Well, that's going to raise their impression of the value that he's going to deliver in the relationship, right? The second thing is having the opportunity to have those conversations simply by inviting somebody onto a podcast, whether it's an existing client, which deepens the relationship, or a prospective client, which positions the relationship that you could potentially create in a different light. It's a very, very valuable way to set yourself apart. So smartly done, and something that I encourage listeners to emulate as best they can as well.
Yeah, I'll end with a story around how that's worked. We had a digital client and we parted ways, and it wasn't on great terms, which is the first time this ever happened. I'm okay being transparent about that. It's the only time I felt like a bridge was burned. Only time. And and then a couple of years passed, and he was such a neat guy too. I'm not gonna mention names, but he was such a neat guy, and I was like, I want to invite him on my podcast. So I had him on my podcast, and then we just rekindled the friendship or whatever you want to call it. And then he messaged me like a week ago and said, "Hey, I've got this project." It ended up not being a good fit, but he ran it by me and was like, "Hey, could you help with this?" And so sometimes you never know, you know. That's why I try never try to burn bridges. But even when you feel like the bridge is burned, there's still an opportunity to rekindle that relationship. And in my case, that's been through the podcast.
That's awesome. Well, I think for folks who are interested in checking out the podcast, they absolutely should and can by visiting morningupgrade.com. And if they want to reach out and learn more about what you guys are doing over at Ballantyne, that is ballantyne.com,
Got it.
BALLANTINE.com. And Ryan Cote, thank you so very much for joining me. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you.
Yeah, likewise, David. Thanks a lot.
Folks, if you've heard something in our conversation that you think someone else could benefit from hearing as well, please pass this episode along. In the meantime, I'm David Baer, and this has been more Perfect Marketing. Hope to see you back here again real soon. Take care.